Well, hi, Pete. Thanks for coming on with us. We're just entering the Christmas season here and thought it'd be a good idea to get together and talk a little bit about Battle for the American Mind.
I love it.
I see that our paperbacks are out.
Yes, I found out from somebody else. So
Yeah.
they made their way
So,
out. But Merry
yeah, though
Christmas,
I,
David. It's great to see you.
y- yeah, thank you. Hopefully they'll make good Christmas presents. Hey,
Yes.
I thought it would be a good idea for us just to touch base with the paperback out on a couple of just quotes, and I wanted to get your reaction to them. The first one here, we'll get right into it. This comes out of chapter 2, and I'll just read the quote, and we can talk a little bit about what its ramifications are. So,
Yeah.
um, here's the quote from chapter 2. How did the left get in such a dominant position? In many ways, that's the main question of this book. Unless we answer it, we have no chance of mounting an insurgency. It's not that the left needed to control every piece of terrain in America. Instead, they focused on key terrain, and the results today are sobering. So, that quote, of course, comes out of our chapter on commanding heights, and I know you wrote most of that chapter, so I thought it would be great for you to talk a little bit about that quote.
Sure. Man, I know, like you, I continue to be humbled by the reaction to the book, and it's I'm so blessed to be a part of this partnership. When I think of what sticks out to me, because I know we're going to get to this too, is our solution was an educational insurgency. And that has a military theme to it, even though it's educational. Well, key terrain is a military term. You can't control everything, but all you have to identify is those people, places, geography, the commanding heights that are the most important, while nobody else is looking in this particular case. And that's why I think the key word here is complacency. Christians, conservatives, patriots got complacent and assumed that the paideia of our forefathers would be perpetuated through, our churches that were shrinking and our families that were focused on other things and schools that were on autopilot because we assumed they'd be the same as they were for us. And at the same time, as we tell in the story, Marxists, atheists, humanists burrowed in at key places that became the pipelines to the commanding heights. So it's not that they instantly controlled teachers' colleges or instantly controlled unions or instantly controlled the universities or the accreditations. They started to slowly but surely push their philosophies and then their minions and their people into those positions. And then the people holding those commanding heights weren't necessarily dedicated Christians or holding the line. So it's death by 1,000 cuts as a new idea and a new person shames them into complying with the latest view of the left. And then you get to the point where we are now, which is why we recommended a tactical retreat and an insurgency, because charging those commanding heights is a cultural death wish right now because they're in such control.
Yes, well, I really appreciated all of the military knowledge you brought to the book because I do think it is an apt analogy to where we are. That commanding height situation has, you know, what surprised me about it was how much conservatives were looking the other way. We were
Yeah.
looking at economics, we were looking at communism. There were the McCarthy hearings. There were all kinds of things that were going on trying to stave off straight up Marxism in a communist economic form. While all the while under our noses, they were slowly taking those commanding heights of education, which of course eventually took on the culture and uh, the whole American paideia.
Yes. I mean, it's a mistake we still make today. We're hyper focused on the next election or who's going to represent us or what's happening in Congress. And I talk about those things every day. But to think those are the things that are going to right the ship is to continue to play into the hands of the left on in all the other spheres of our communities, our families, and our country. Politics, is downstream of culture. Culture is downstream of faith, as we talk about in the book. And you believe in something, and if our belief is like the left, that politics can see, they're like tinkering utopians who think the government can do that. We're going to lose at that game because they're always more rabid about the expansion of government and control of our lives. We've got to go to first principles, and education's one of those. Like, it is really, and that's why 16,000 Hours was the working title of our book. I mean, besides going to church, besides being with your family and how you develop your kids, I mean, what else is more important? Who was I talking? I did an interview yesterday, Dave, 2 days ago, with a wonderful woman who runs a Christian organization out of Nashville, and we talked about the generational impact of education. And it was sad. I felt bad, and I don't blame her at all. But she basically looked at me and said, "My grandkids are atheists, you know, and they're chasing after the world, and they're Democrat, and I don't know what happened." And I don't shame her. I just think that that's what happens, and we're too busy living our lives and voting the right way, and then we don't do anything about the education of our kids, and then we look around and they love Bernie, and we wonder why.
Well, you know, Pete, when we got to the end of the book at Battle for the American Mind, you had, I thought, a lot of really insightful things to talk about with regard to insurgency. And that's what we're advocating for here. And I think we saw it, you know, when Biden withdrew from Afghanistan, the places people thought the control was coming from, Kandahar and the Bagram Air Base, really weren't where the power was. It was in the families out in the hinterlands where the Taliban were strong. And I think we can kind of learn from that. We can exist in out in our homes and in our communities and continue to feed the insurgency through classical Christian education.
No doubt. That's what's going to have to happen, is in the hinterlands. It's going to have to happen in Idaho and Tennessee and everywhere in between. And that's not to say there aren't examples of places where people have gotten a foothold in elite institutions. Princeton's a great example with Robbie George and Christians and conservatives there. I mean, that's all very good stuff. Rear guard action, you might call it, behind enemy lines. So we've got some scouts out there doing those things. But ultimately, if we're going to take it back, it's not going to be, you're right. I mean, to use that military analogy, it's not going to be in Kabul or in Kandahar or at Bagram. It's going to be way out in the Hindu Kush, way out where the troops can't deploy right now, and we can control our families and our churches and our communities and try to build a critical mass.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Pete. As you know, my day job is working with the Association of Classical Christian Schools, where we try and help schools get started, help them grow, train the teachers. We're having to replace all of that infrastructure that the progressives took over 100 years ago, and it costs money, it takes time. So we're encouraging anyone who wants to join the insurgency and maybe do so through financial contributions to consider giving to the association so that we can train teachers and do those sorts of things.
100%. I mean, you guys are the front lines, as we said in the book. And I say it to every group that I talk to, the groups that I'll talk to in the future. Give to ACCS, give to schools that are a part of the association. Stop giving to your alma mater, give to the grassroots insurgency, and more importantly, make the change as well within your family.
Thanks, Pete. Appreciate it.